My name is Jasmine Segura, and I am 26 years old. I'm originally from Mexico City, and I migrated into the United States about a little less than 20 years ago. In 1994, the year that NAFTA was passed, I came to the United States to be reunited with my father, who had been living in the United States for a year before us. And my mother back in Mexico was pressured by my grandmother and other family members to come and follow her husband. I guess in our culture and in our generation, that was the right thing to do as a wife, to follow your husband where he was at. So a year after my dad came to the United States looking for a job, to the land of opportunity, and it was this place where people picked money from the streets and from the floor and from trees. That's where my dad envisioned to come to. We settled in East Los Angeles, in an unincorporated area, Boyle Heights area. It's predominantly Latino community. I would say predominantly like Mexican community, from different generations. There's, very recent immigrants to third, fourth, fifth generation, Chicano, a lot of culture in that region. So to my surprise, East LA was different than Mexico City, but not so much in the sense that I could still speak my language in supermarkets. I was still able to speak my language in school with some of my teachers and my neighbors. So I think that was very rewarding for me at the moment. At the same time though, I did get here in my third grade. I came into my third grade, and in elementary school I was teased for not being able to speak English, and I was placed in classes where you were an English language learner. So there's a lot of bullying around that for not being able to speak the language during playtime and during recess. So that was hard for me, and I remembered that I picked up the language quite fast, I think, as a child, but I was always very embarrassed to translate for my mother. I was very self-conscious of my accent, and I remember that my mom, not being able to speak the language, would always ask me to translate for her as the oldest child in my family. So she would always get really upset when we were riding the bus or going to like the doctor whenever I was just too shy to speak it. We came to live in my aunt's house, so there was about 8 adults living in like a 2-bedroom apartment, and my family, so that was my parents, 2 of my siblings and myself, we stayed in the living room, and the living room was half living room, half kitchen. So every night we would open up the closet and we would bring down the bed, and I would share the sofa with my sister. So that was our the first 8 months here in the United States. After my mom was a little frustrated with that, we decided to move on to our first apartment. But the experience was quite interesting. We came from a place where we lived with our family, but it was a very open space. So coming here, that was very different to just be stuck in a like 2-bedroom apartment, really tiny place. But one of our neighbors was a very anti-immigrant person, which is interesting living in East LA, Boyle Heights area, but I remember she would hate when we would run around the apartment complex. There was a really like small grass area that was sort of on her side, and I just remember her always saying like, oh, those immigrants, or using very derogatory language to address us running around the area. My parents had to work really hard, and they had to work 2 jobs, and I had to have babysitters with people that I didn't know, and I needed to have or babysit my or siblings. You know, as the oldest, I had to take on that role as a young mother for my siblings. So I didn't see much of my parents. I think, you know, we really forget about the quality of life, and that has to sort of be, that's the negotiation that you give up. The quality of life, the family time, and also the dignity of people gets lost. If you don't know the language and you don't know how, you know, the system works here, it's very easily for you to be, you know, victim of people who just want to take advantage, of people who, you know, don't want to pay less than minimum wage, for example, and people who try to exploit you as much as possible. So that was the El Norte to me. That's what it meant, that I had lost the quality time for my family and my parents. But nonetheless, I think that it was worth it, and I would do it all over again, just to make sure that I had, you know, that my family was together.